Hey VC, it's Joel coming at you from Planet 13, and this is my Vinyl Tag 2020 episode. And I haven't participated in previous years because I just didn't have enough vinyl. I've only been collecting vinyl for about 2 years, and I started off with basically zero albums. I recently did put my collection into Discogs, and I have 365 albums, which means I have been buying pretty much a vinyl every other day. So this was the first year where I had enough to kind of have enough variety to kind of squeak in. I will have to cheat and show some CDs, but this is all just fun and games anyway. Who really cares? So my best find of 2019, you can mock me all you want, but this is the first time I've heard this album, and I kind of got into it mostly because of I have similar interests to Melinda Murphy and Jamie Cottle, and they rave about this band all the time. And I thought, these are two people I respect. I should, kind of give this album a chance. It was normally an expensive album, and all this band's catalog is super expensive. Even their used albums go for a lot of money where I live. But it came down to $20 on Amazon, 20 Canadian, so it'd be like 15 American. And that's the Beatles 2 LP white album that they reissued. And it's got the posters and the I guess photographs of the band too, individual portrait photographs. So yeah, just a phenomenal album. I couldn't believe how amazing this was. Usually someone refers to some great album that they grew up with, and it's good, but it's not like amazing. But this is amazing to me. I know it's not their best album, as many consider Abbey Road their best, or maybe Revolver or whatever else they got, which I do intend to buy. But this was just, I love the push and pull of all four members, the diversity, just how everything kind of switched up, but it still had a unique kind of theme that resonated throughout. So yeah, just this is my favorite find of 2019, and I got it for a reasonable price because Beatles, I guess the brand carries a lot of weight. I don't think their albums, except for the original pressings, are valuable because there's just the market's flooded with Beatles, but no one ever wants to give them up because it's a great band. So I was happy to get that. Favorite album of 2019? I haven't heard many people talk about this. It's Soundgarden live from the Artist Den. Now I'm going to be honest, and I don't want to seem inauthentic when I say this, but I will be honest. I don't think I would have bought this album, if it wasn't on sale. It's usually about $150 American. I got it for about 45 American. So it was a good price. It's 4 LPs. It comes in a slipcase. But I don't think I would have bought this had Chris Cornell not died. And I'm just trying to be honest here. I was a big Soundgarden fan back in the 90s. And I felt kind of betrayed when they broke up. They just kind of were at their peak, and then they split up. And I know Chris Cornell had his own thing with Audioslave, which I followed, but no one else really stayed in the limelight. And as a fan, I felt betrayed, like I said. And when they reunited, I was just like, another 90s band reuniting. Who cares? And then Chris Cornell died, and it just made me realize what a talent he was, why his music is still worth exploring. And, I feel stupid saying that, but I imagine a lot of people are probably like that as well. And I think that just has to do with, and Soundgarden admits to this, is that they did not continue with the brand when they split up. They were not taking care of their past catalog. You didn't see kids walking around with Soundgarden t-shirts anymore. No one really cared about Soundgarden anymore other than the hits. So when they got back together, it was their goal to, bring the band back slowly and hopefully, back to their former glory. And they released two quality albums after, I believe, studio albums. And some of those songs appear on here. And this is just a blend of old songs, new songs, and their hits. Every Soundgarden song you'd want is on here. I know when you see a live album that's 4 LPs, you might expect there's just 2 songs per side, but this has about 4 to 5 songs per side. Some might have 3, some might have 6, but on average, I'd say the average is about 5. So it's a good long album, and I got this the end of December, so I've only spun it once, like all 4 songs once. I'll probably do a separate unboxing on this because it is splattered vinyl, like each has a different splatter. And when you put the 4 LPs together, there's a poster. But this was a great pickup, and it was released in 2019. And it is my favorite album released. They also, I think you can watch it on YouTube. They released a PBS concert, and I'm sure someone's like bootlegged it on YouTube. Next question is novelty record. I'm going to go with Spider Jazz. They can't say exactly, due to legal reasons, what this is from, but I think you can kind of figure it out. And I could say it, but I'm not going to, just to be funny. But it's the KPMQs used in the Amazing series, animated series. And it's just, yeah, just some jazzy kind of background music. It's novelty. I'm a big fan of cartoons, so I like this one a lot. Homage cover pays homage to another artist. So I'm kind of stretching it out here, making a big leap. I'm doing this because I didn't want to Google anything. I didn't want to cheat. No offense to anyone who did cheat. I'm not saying anyone shouldn't have cheated. It was just more of a challenge for me. I just something I wanted to think about, kind of reflect on. I think that's just what I wanted to do, personally. So what we have here is 2 Fox shows, 1 soundtrack. I think they're both released the same year. Is called Songs in the Key of X. So that's from the X-Files TV show. And the other one is Songs in the Key of Springfield. Now, Songs in the Key might be something from some Frank Sinatra musical released in the 50s. I don't know. I don't even know if that exists. I'm just saying this could be an homage to something else. But I just thought it was funny that they kind of homaged one another. I think Springfield homaged X-Files because the X-Files album was a big hit. Lots of great tracks on here, by the way, if you ever see it. You got Sheryl Crow, Soul Coughing, Foo Fighters, William Burroughs, Nick Cave, Filter, Frank Black, Meat Puppets, Danzig, Screamin' Jay Hawkins, Elvis Costello, Rob Zombie with Alice Cooper, PM Dawn, and then the theme itself. Fun soundtrack. The Simpsons one's fun too. It has a Ramones song on there and all the bands who played on there, like Aerosmith and I forget who else, Spinal Tap. What else we got? B-side, Deep Cut. I had a hard time with this. This is like, because we're all fans of the music, like in the VC, and we all, when we buy vinyl, like we all kind of listen to everything front and back, and we don't skip tracks, so we kind of become familiar with every track on the album. Like I could talk with Melinda about a Kiss album and reference some obscure song, and she'd know what it is because she's a Kiss fan. Or I could do that the same with Jamie with Pink Floyd or the Beatles once I get to know the Beatles. So this was tough for me, but because I'm such a big Alice Cooper fan, I'm going to go with something that might surprise someone who's not into Alice Cooper, in that he had Patty Donahue from the band The Waitress. That band sang the song I Know What Boys Like. She guest stars with, it says, extra vocals and sarcasm for a song called I Like Girls. So that is my deep cut. If you're not a fan of Alice Cooper, but you like The Waitress, you might want to give this one a chance. It's this is regarded as one of Alice Cooper's worst albums, so YouTube it before you buy the vinyl. Weird Shelf Buddies. This I had trouble with. I think we all have kind of diverse collections. So I kind of went with just my strange sense of humor. Like Jamie and Chris, 2 other Canadian collectors, I don't have my collection in alphabetical order. I have it by not even genre, really. I guess I kind of do, but I have like all my Canadian artists sometimes in one spot, like classic Canadian artists, but then I have my 90s artists mixed in with my, it's a mess. What I do have consistent is my soundtracks in one spot, and I have Alice Cooper, Kiss, Bowie, and Black Sabbath in one section. I don't know why, but those are my go-to bands, and then I have my soundtrack somewhere else. And then I have like my obscure Canadiana bands in one spot, but then some of my Canadian bands go with my rock and roll albums. Anyway, this is This one was always weird, and I have it in there strictly for humor. So there's a band called Moist, and I have it beside Meatloaf, and I just thought it's funny just to have the phrase Moist Meatloaf, and that's just my strange humor. I was there, a band I've seen. I'm gonna go deep with this one. I missed one. So Something Funky. I forgot one. Something Funky. I haven't got really into funky music, but the Boogie Nights soundtrack is what introduced me more to funk. A lot of funky bands on here. A lot of bands I want to look up once I kind of fill out my collection. Concert I was there for. I'm going really deep with this one. So when Kiss made the movie Detroit Rock City, they filmed the concert scenes in my hometown of Hamilton, Ontario. And I got to attend the show they put on for that movie. So basically, it was really strict. You had to wear basically a t-shirt that would have been popular in the 70s or had no logo that could make it look like it was from the 90s. And you also had to look like you were from the 70s. So I had long hair back then, and it was I just had it parted down the middle, went down to my ass. So I just wore a black t-shirt, black jeans. I'm in the movie. Like sometimes I think Hamilton, it's kind of referred to as the armpit of Canada because it's just kind of it's sketchy in some spots, I guess. And we were a steel industry for a while, so kind of similar to Detroit, I guess. There's parallels, but we also attract a lot of musical bands because we are essentially a large portion of us are blue collar. It's changed in the years since. There's a lot more white collar because a lot of people now who live in Hamilton commute to Toronto. So I always kind of thought I lived in this obscure city, but I've had a lot of opportunities to meet or be in movies, and I've met a lot of famous people in Hamilton. And actually, Neil Peart, who recently passed away yesterday, was born in Hamilton. We've had a lot of talent come out of Hamilton. So just the fact that I was there. Speaking of the concert, they didn't play like a concert in completion. It was free, and it was about a 12-hour day, and most of that was just kind of waiting in line, finding your seat. And the band would come out, and they would just perform the same three songs over and over and over and over again. So I saw the band for about 4 or 5 hours, just doing the same three songs over and over again with breaks in between. And they'd throw out picks and stuff. They didn't really talk to the crowd. They had to focus on working, but it was a lot of fun. A lot of people from Detroit came up, of course, and from Toronto, and people from all over the world wanted to be in this movie because it was a big deal back then. So it was just interesting meeting all those people. Wish I had an OG copy, but I have a repress. I'm not an expert on this. I just heard Melinda talk about it, and then Frank from Vinyl 33 talk about it as well. And it is Bowie's Let's Dance album. Apparently the 1982 album or pressing. I don't even know if that's OG. Might have been like a year after. I don't know. But the 82 album is apparently spectacular. It's like one of the best sounding albums you can find. And this is the recent repress from last year, 2019, or maybe it might be 2018. It sounds good to me, but apparently the 82 version just sounds phenomenal. And it's a lot thinner vinyl too. Like this is 180 grams, and it's on the other one's like on when if you pick it up, you're afraid it's going to snap because it's so light. So yeah, that's just something I'd like to kind of experience to see what people are talking about. A discography you own. I actually own every White Zombie album. This is a beast. This is like 18 pounds. It's White Zombie. It came from New York City. It's every pre-Geffen White Zombie on vinyl. So there's 4 albums on there. Plus a big booklet documenting everything. And then I have the rest of their collection on CD. I haven't skipped to vinyl yet. I don't know if I want to because I don't know if it's going to be released properly. Like I think it's just a digital copy on analog. And that doesn't really excite me and make it worth the effort to spend a lot of money on it when it's perfectly acceptable on CD. I don't think I'll get any extra enjoyment out of it. But I have all their independent CDs and major record label CDs. And then they released a lot of songs on soundtracks, and I have everything that White Zombie has ever officially put out. unique center label. This one I like. So it's a soundtrack to Black Christmas. Black Christmas has been released. They just released it again, like a remake. So it's been released twice since the original 1974 movie. The director who did this, he also directed Porky's, which is like one of the funniest comedies from the 80s. And then he directed A Christmas Story, which is one of the funniest Christmas movies. And this is one of the scariest Christmas movies. It's still frightening. Margot Kidder? Margot Kidder. She played, she was another Canadian gal. She played Lois Lane in the 80s Superman movies. She's probably the biggest star in these movies. But anyway, I just love the centerpiece, or center label of this, which is a rotary phone. My dad still has a rotary phone. My parents do. They lived in the house for 54 years, and my dad, his claim to fame is that he's been grandfathered in to paying like $2 a month for his phone bill because he has rotary and he's on a party line, and just brings me back. I remember spinning the phone, and I remember in Ontario because we're growing. I used to just do dial uh, 7 digits, but now it's like 10 digits you had to dial. Like in the 90s, they had to switch. And I remember I had a girlfriend at the time, and we'd always call each other. And I remember getting a blister on my index finger just dialing. It's just fun watching that on the album play. Musical book or no pre-band. Someone who's famous in a band before they got famous, I guess. I'm gonna go with Danny Elfman from Oingo Boingo. He's done the score to a ton of movies that I love. They're mostly Tim Burton movies. He also did The Simpsons. He did Tales from the Crypt, Scrooge. He did, of course, Beetlejuice and Edward Scissorhands, Pee Wee Herman's Big Adventure. Pretty much every Tim Burton movie. I don't know what he's done lately. I kind of, after, what would it be? I guess Sleepy Hollow. I just kind of lost track with Tim Burton and Danny Elfman. But I was a major score collector way back when, and I still do like scores, but nothing modern has really caught me like the classic 80s and 90s and I guess 70s scores that I love. Musical book you'd recommend? I want to recommend this one if you're a fan of the Misfits. This is a great book. So Eerie Von went to school with the Misfits, and he was also in his separate bands. He was never in the Misfits, but he was in Danzig later on. So from 1981 to 2009, he's got pictures of the evolution of the Misfits into Samhain into Danzig. Just a phenomenal book. Some really candid photos, just stuff you'd never see. Things from high school. A lot of this book is from the band in high school, just performing local shows. They're like 16 to 18. They're just kids, and they have their own homemade costumes, and then it kind of evolves to when they were doing stadiums with Danzig. So just a really fun book. It's all photographed mostly with text. Just, your average page is going to be like that. That's them with when they toured with Metallica, because Metallica kind of brought them back into popularity when Metallica covered them. Underrated album, I'm going to go with this one. I haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. It's strictly Canada. If you're American, you won't really get this. But it's, so this is an album Gord Downie from the Tragically Hip released. So Gord Downie, another famous Canadian like Neil Peart. Gord Downie is like our Bob Dylan in some sense. He writes a lot about Canada in the band Tragically Hip. He was his own unique, like no one comes close to Gord Downie. Like just, you can't really compare him to Bob Dylan, but just I guess in a sense of bringing Canada together, you would. He would just go off in like spoken word during concerts that were just phenomenal, just really unique performer. And he was diagnosed with a brain tumor, unfortunately, and I guess they gave him about 2 to 3 years to live. So they did one last tour as a Tragically Hip to say farewell to everyone. And then he did his own side projects, and he did side projects that kind of brought attention to details that he was passionate about. And that was a struggle for him because he was also dealing with his brain tumors and memory loss, and he's probably having seizures or just things that weren't working in his body, but he just powered through it just to, while the limelight was on him, to kind of speak for other people. So he made an album for just to bring attention to Native rights in Canada and how they were mistreated in the 1800s. we did some horrible things in Canada where we took kids out of their families and kind of sent them to these schools out in the nowhere where we were whitewashing them to make them adjust to our culture. And that is just awful. And there was, I guess Gord Downie read about a case where this young gentleman ran away from that school and unfortunately died trying to get home. He ran out into the cold and had no idea how to get home. He had no idea where he was. He was in the middle of nowhere, and he died. And this is like kind of a musical experience. It comes with a comic book and some prints, so you can kind of read the comic book and experience the music at the same time. They also released an animated film that they aired on TV where they had the music playing, but it's just an interesting, underappreciated album. I still see this for sale everywhere. I thought it would be like a collector's item. I didn't buy it as I thought it'd be a collector's item, but I just thought more people would be interested in this, and I don't think it sold too well. But it's a really great album to have in your collection if you're from Canada and you're kind of into that sort of thing. Batting average, artist, band, consistently good music. I'd have to go with Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. I don't see him discussed a lot. I don't think he's ever released a bad album. If you're not familiar with him, Nick Cave, I guess I would compare him to Leonard Cohen in that he kind of puts poetry to darker music, but he's got, I think, more of a comedy. Like, he's got really dark music, but there's also a lot of comedy in his lyrics too that kind of just shoot over your head unless you kind of look into it. He's been covered by Johnny Cash, and he's got, you've heard his songs. He's in a lot of movies. You'll hear his music. Like, I think in Scream 1 and 2 they play one of his songs, and he's been played on, or he does soundtracks to a lot of good movies too recently that have come out. But this is Skeleton Tree. I'd start here if you want to get into Nick Cave. Other people are obviously going to disagree, but I think this is one of his most powerful records, and it's just a very ghostly album. That's the best I can explain it. Like, right before this came out, his son died. He had two twin sons, and one of them died falling off a cliff in, I think it was England. And then Nick Cave had to kind of soldier on. And he kind of had some cameras on him that he wasn't really too keen about, but he wanted to show the honest reaction to how he reacted to his son's death while still having to go out and promote this album, tour for it, and finish it off and everything. So he had this album written before his son died, or most of it, and then it's really weird. It's like a premonition. His feelings, his lyrics kind of are haunting in the sense that it kind of goes back to that, life-changing moment in his life. And it's just a really powerful album because of that. And it's the documentary is powerful as well because he's really grumpy, and you just see a man just caught in this tragedy, and it's just breathtaking. He's really brave to do that, and I don't think he is a man like doing this to get publicity. I just think he's just genuine. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and he also has a really fantastic mailing list. You can email him a question, and once a week he'll answer the question. He always gives like a really detailed response. So maybe if I remember, I'll leave a link below to that if you're interested in Nick Cave. If you want a weekly email from him, it's really cool. Same album cover, different. Same album, different cover. Going with Without Cheating, I have Motley Crue, The Dirt. So this was their greatest hits. They have an alternate cover with the Jack Daniels kind of cover. So that's what I got for that. An album you bought on the cheap that is now worth money. That would have to be the latest Smashing Pumpkins EP. I bought it for $16 on Discogs. It goes for, the median is $179. The max is like $309. And yeah, this in itself isn't valuable, but I got the version that has a glow-in-the-dark poster and a glow-in-the-dark album. And that variant, I think they only made $250. So that's why, among Smashing Pumpkin collectors, this is worth a lot to them. me, I was kind of disappointed when I got the Glow in the Dark, but now that's worth a bit. I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of happy. Last question. No, second last question. No, wait, third last question. Favorite drummer? Jimmy Chamberlin, my favorite drummer. I just recently came to that realization about last year. Just I love the grunge drummers, all of them. They all had like a big sound, like Nirvana had Dave Grohl, Soundgarden had a big sound that was drum influenced. Alice in Chains, they all had big drum sounds that's missing from music lately. Like we haven't really had that since the grunge era, I find. And I just love Jimmy's drumming. I remember seeing Smashing Pumpkins on tour. I saw them at Massey Hall, which is of course famous for Neil Young's acoustic album. And so it's a theater, and I remember going in, and just before the band came on, Jimmy started drumming, and he just made all the seats just kind of shake with his powerful drumming. And ever since then, he's been, I guess, my favorite drummer. Turning 20, an album turning 20 in 2020. What I got with that is Kid A by Radiohead, probably one of the last CDs I've bought that came out on like a release date. And it took me like 15 years, but I didn't realize if you open up the center, there's an extra booklet hidden inside, which is kind of cool. Yeah, and it's extra image. No one would kind of realize that for a while. Or maybe they did, but because this was pre-internet, you didn't get that like clickbaity stuff you see now, like 100 surprises about Kid A. That would be like number 99 after you scroll through like so many surprises you could care less about. But yeah, that is my album turning 20, and I kind of lost touch with Radiohead with that. I was kind of more into the stuff before that. People love this. This is usually their best album on many people's list. And it's a great album, but I just wasn't my thing. I think I will get back into it, though. I'm going to give it another chance. It just wasn't my thing. I kind of like their poppier kind of stuff, I guess. A trilogy of albums turning 3, or a trilogy of albums, 3 solid albums back to back. I'm going to go with Bowie's Berlin trilogy. So Bowie basically, he left America to go back and kind of kick drugs with Iggy Pop. So you could factor in the Iggy Pop albums, but I'm just going to go with the Bowie albums. So you got Low, you got Heroes, and you got The Lodger. And why these albums resonate with me, and a theme I think is self-identity. With this Bowie, you can kind of see the still is taken from one of the movies, The Man Who Fell to Earth. It's him, my interpretation at least, is him kind of turning his back on his past and his loss of identity. Bowie was always considered a chameleon, and he had so many identities before this, and I don't think he knew who he was. And they got really heavily involved in cocaine, and I think this is his albums kind of refining himself and reinventing himself in a new direction. And he released 3 spectacular albums back to back. And I think we all kind of go through this maybe at some point in our lives. At least I did. Probably when I was 36, I really didn't know who I was anymore. I was at my most popular, like friends-wise. I was going to parties every day, it seemed like. I had a lot of social life happening. I was working as a bartender, and I was working a lot and just socializing. And then perks of being a bartender is you get to drink on the job. So I think I was kind of drunk and just not grounded in reality, and my life just didn't seem real at that point. So I wouldn't say I was an alcoholic. Like I wasn't getting drunk every day. I wasn't craving alcohol, but I wasn't using my time wisely as I think I am now. Now I have more of an idea of who I am. So that is why I kind of identify with that. Anyway, I'm going to end on some shout outs. Obviously, I can't include everyone. I'm going to miss a lot of people, but this isn't the Oscars. I could ramble on, honestly. I could honestly ramble on for a half hour about so many people's channels, but I'm going to stick to some ones that I just personally love, and I'm going to stick to ones that people I've been communicating with, some friendships I've built that I value. So I'm going to start with Jamie Cottle. He was the first channel I watched. He's the first person to introduce himself to me. Jamie, first person to send me some VCLT, sent me some Frank Zappa and some Nash the Slash albums that are really cool. Jamie is considered the king of box sets, but he's also the king of Canadiana. He's just got an encyclopedia mind about Canadian music, and I just show some really great albums, and he also does some great unboxings. Every episode I watch, I'm always excited to watch when I see one pop up. Great presentation, great presentation skills. Another Canadian, Chris, the blues vinyl guy, amazing knowledge about blues and just southern rock like the Black Crowes, and he showed some other albums too that escape me because the camera's on me, but I'll remember as soon as the camera's off. But yeah, a lot of blues-based stuff, a lot of Zeppelin, CCR, Creedence. I love his channel. I love how he takes his time and just goes over everything. And then there's Melinda Murphy, who I've mentioned before. Just a lot of similar interests with her. And then Steve Carlson just brings a lot of joy to my life. I don't want to go too long about Steve, but what I love about Steve is it's just every week you get to catch up with him. He's like the James Brown of the vinyl community, and he's like, I think he's the hardest working guy among us. He's always commenting on, you can look up any vinyl community video and there'll be a comment from Steve. That takes a lot of effort because he's a busy guy because he works a lot, and then he's got to listen to these albums, and he's got his family life on top of that, and he has an exciting life. He's got a cat too that he's got to take up time. I just live on my own in my house, and he's got all these responsibilities. I got nothing. My commute to work is like 20 minutes, and he's got to get on a plane or take taxis, and holy cow, I just find it hard enough to keep up with my own life. I don't know how he does it. Then there's Beth from B-Side Vinyl. She does a lot of horror movie review albums and soundtrack albums that aren't horror movies, of course, and a lot on Queen and Elvis, and just a great channel. I love her channel. One last channel I wanted to discuss is Jeff at Various Vinyl, or I should say Jeff and Bobby. What I like about Jeff's channel, and Jeff's a really cool guy just to begin with. He was in a Kiss tribute band at one point where he was as Ace Frehley. But what I like about Jeff is that he reminds me of being in high school again, and not because Jeff is immature, but back when I was in high school in the early 90s, we didn't have the internet, and we had magazines. You could pick up a Circus magazine, but you didn't have a lot of money to go around, right? You could pick up a magazine, or you could save and buy an album, and everyone would exchange albums, and we talk about albums. And since then, we now have a vaster knowledge about albums. But what Jeff manages to do, and other people do this too, so I'm not knocking anyone, but I just see it a lot in Jeff's comments about albums, is that he just kind of makes you look at albums in a different perspective. And I don't think he sets out to do this. I just think it's just natural in how he reflects this. And that's what I just kind of like about Jeff's channel. Every time he kind of goes over an album, he just makes me think about things. And I sometimes comment on something, and he'll leave like an amazing comment, and I want to comment back, but I have to go kind of listen to the album and kind of put his spin on it, and that takes time. And then by the time I'm ready to comment, like a month or two has passed, so I just always feel bad for leaving the comments hanging or the thread hanging. But Jeff always inspires me to kind of re-listen to things and look at it from his point of view, which isn't like, I wouldn't say his point of view is like completely divergent from mainstream. It's just a different angle, and it's just kind of fascinating to me. And it's just something I kind of loved from high school. So anyway, I will shut up now, and until next time, cheers.